Hey guys, it's Jonathan Reich, a licensed CPA in the state of Louisiana. Today we're going to be talking about Puzzle versus QuickBooks. So we've all heard of QuickBooks. QuickBooks is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. You've probably seen this dashboard 100 times if you've seen it once. This is QuickBooks Online user interface. You've got your standard drop-down ribbons over here and then your standard dashboard. Now the other side of this is probably a little different. Puzzle's a little bit newer. What's the difference between the two? Let's find out. So Puzzle is basically an AI-powered accounting software. So the way that I've described it in the past is that Puzzle is essentially new and it was built with AI as the engine, as its driver. Whereas legacy companies like QuickBooks, Xero, FreshBooks, Wave, entities like that were already in existence before this big AI boom that started in 2022 basically have AI entered into their software as an afterthought, as an aftermarket add-on essentially. Puzzle's a little different because it was built centered around AI. So let's jump into some of the key differences and where they both succeed and where they may fail. So first, Puzzle's UI. I don't want to sound like I'm doting on Puzzle too much, but it has a really sleek user interface. And so I've got some other videos out there that kind of walk through this interface a little bit more in depth. But at just first glance within this test company, you can see that it looks nice. It's easy to read. How much cash does my business have? How much longer until I run out of cash? What's my burn? What am I spending it on? What's payroll? What's not payroll? What's my net burn month over month compared to this time last year? How much money I'm bringing in? I can see all of that like that. I mean, instantly, in a flick of an eye. And then the other thing that I really like about Puzzle is the profit and loss and the balance sheet is right here. As an accountant, as a CPA, I spend a ton of time within the financial statements. Maybe other business owners may not care as much about it as I do, but the financial statements are basically a quick indicator of health within your company. And so to have it right here on the homepage, right in the dashboard, to where I can just start drilling in and finding out my revenue, what my revenue source is, what time period, and then what comprises it by driving and saying, okay, Stripe is 37,000, and then who sent that to me, and I can just continue to drill in until I get the information I want. That's pretty nice. But what if I jump over to QuickBooks? QuickBooks has that almost that nostalgic feeling. We're all pretty familiar with this system. If not, consider yourself blessed. You've probably been working for a Fortune 500 since you got out of school. QuickBooks does have some key benefits as opposed to Puzzle. One, it's longevity. QuickBooks has probably been around since the beginning of computers almost. And so any issue that you may run into on the dashboard, you're going to be able to find a forum, find someone online who's had the same issue. I've actually found 2 new issues that I never found an answer for on a forum. And so I was able to reach out to help via Intuit's little help box right here. They connected me to someone who was able to troubleshoot the issue, gave me status updates via email. So QuickBooks does have that going for it in terms of it's been around a long time. It's been out. It's a polished software. I can't say the same for Puzzle. It seems to be relatively new. So that is one of the key differences between Puzzle and QuickBooks off the rip. If you're within QuickBooks on the homepage, I just have my company here. I haven't updated these books in months. You know how they say don't look at a mechanic's car. Don't look at your accountant's books, because I know personally I'm well behind. But the user interface for the reports presented on this dashboard just, in my opinion, aren't nearly as clean as Puzzle. I've logged into this dashboard 100 times, probably tens of thousands of times to be honest, and I've never once paid attention to these reports. They don't catch my eye. I feel like most of the time they're missing information, and they don't tell me stuff that I need to know. Like, do I need a loan for my business? No, but here it is. It's included right here. You know, there's tips and suggestions, things that they want you to buy. Not really my style. I hate being pushed things that I don't need. So yes, they do have some reports that showcase what's in your bank, what's your cash balance and stuff like that, but it's just not sleek. It doesn't catch my eye. And so right off the rip, that's 2 main differences between Puzzle and QuickBooks. One other key difference about QuickBooks versus Puzzle, remember how the financials are right here. They're ready to go. In QuickBooks, I have to drill in to be able to get to that. So I can go to my standard reports, wait a minute for it to load. Okay, now I can jump to my profit and loss. Well, maybe I don't want to look at my profit and loss from January 1st to April 28th. I need to look at it in the last 3 quarters and set it to this quarter and showcase that. Whereas Puzzle, it's right here, it's waiting on you. If I drill in here to see what my services are, it'll give you that traditional ledger. So it is a little bit more cumbersome to access in QuickBooks, but that is probably because it's a legacy system. It's probably got a spaghetti mess of code running behind it, whereas Puzzle was able to have a fresh start, and it's brand new, so everything was able to be built from the ground up to have that seamless and intuitive user interface. Another key difference between Puzzle and QuickBooks, this is something that I absolutely adore on Puzzle. If this option is available on QuickBooks, I'm not aware of it, and I've spent a lot of time in QuickBooks, so they probably need to push it a little bit harder. Whenever you're going to close month end, most accountants like a checklist. I like a checklist. Checklists keep me honest, checklists keep me out of trouble. Whenever I'm going through checklists, it's really nice to say, okay, that's done, moving on to the next, moving on to the next. And Puzzle makes that for you. First thing, let's go ahead and review our bank accounts and get those reconciled. A lot of times they'll do that automatically, and it just wants you to come in and double check. And the third-party processors like Stripe, they take a little bit more time. They might have more data to bring over, so those take a little bit longer. Typically, bank accounts are instant. And then review, it just walks you through review balance sheet, review bank accounts, review the P&L. Review spending, vendors, revenue, that basic accounting stuff that you're going to do month over month. But it is nice to have it here in a checklist for you or your team. Maybe you're not a one-man band, maybe you got 5 or 6 people on it, so you need one person to be doing 1 or 2 other tasks. Within QuickBooks, I have actually never paid attention to see if there's anything like that out here. And if there is, it's not nearly as accessible as being in the ribbon over here. So that is something that I really appreciate because it helps keep my nose clean, helps me ensure that I didn't miss anything for that month. So if we jump over to transactions, on a side-by-side view, in my opinion, these aren't super different. So transactions, here you can drill in, and let's click on bank and credit card. You'll actually see how similar they are here in just a second, but this is basically, this is going to showcase the date, the vendor, the amount, the description, and then you can go in and change it if you want to drill in and say, this wasn't a ground transportation. I actually paid to have an elevator shaft installed in my office, and the company's name was Lyft. And you would put this under property, plant, and equipment, or elevator expense, or whatever. And so that's going to look pretty similar. Both QuickBooks and Puzzle do possess this intuitive design. In my opinion, QuickBooks is basing its automatic categorization using its AI based on previous patterns, and I have found that it's often hit or miss. Puzzle does seem to get it right more often than QuickBooks, but QuickBooks UI is going to be very similar if you go into transactions. You go to bank transactions, and then you can just scroll in, and it's going to be very similar here, and that shows that date, shows that description. It's going to try and guess what it thinks it's for. It's going to tell you the amount received, the amount spent, and then you can go in, drill in, say, oh, ChatGPT, that's not office and software. I'm going to book that under AI expense, something like that. And so not really much of a difference there. I do think Puzzle does a better job of getting it right more often than QuickBooks, but in terms of UI, accessibility, and how it pushes things to the financial statements, they're pretty similar. In a similar vein, payment processor here, so if you just drop down under transactions, it's going to be right here. So April 26th, it'll show you this is Square, and while I don't have Square connected on my QuickBooks, I have used it with my clients. It's very, very similar looking. It'll tell you the customer, the description, what was withheld for processing fees. QuickBooks, if you go over here to app transactions, it'll showcase like if I have PayPal, eBay. So not really much of a difference there, but I do like how you can continue to drill in with Puzzle and quickly find the information that you need. Whereas with QuickBooks, sometimes I have had to go to the third-party vendor's website and drill into the transaction there. Not really that big of a deal, but if you base your pay and your rate off of time. Saving time is saving money, and everyone needs to save a little time. So that is a nice little quirk that I'll give to Puzzle over QuickBooks. All right, moving down the ribbons over here. I feel like I've just been bashing QuickBooks a lot. I promise, they're both perfectly acceptable for most jobs. Puzzle does seem to be the new kid on the block that everyone's kind of raving over right now, though. So if you go into analysis, you'll have a lot of reports here. Once again, it's just got that sleek user interface. You can quickly jump between what's payroll, what's not payroll. Obviously, in this test company, the biggest one's going to be software. And then you can see if I jump to the payroll tab, it'll showcase engineering, product, G&A, admin. And then it'll show like gross salaries, what's taxes, what's the employer portion taxes, other benefits, stuff like that. QuickBooks has a decent set of payroll reports. If you go down to your reporting column over here and then flick through for employees, I've never ran into a problem where QuickBooks didn't have enough information on the different types of payroll reports. This is not a good test company for me to showcase what's in QuickBooks, just because I am a sole proprietor and I don't have any employees, so I don't have to worry about running payroll out of QuickBooks. But one of the key differences as opposed to QuickBooks versus Puzzle is actually running payroll. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that as I move through those ribbons. But Puzzle does a good job of playing ball with third parties. So Gusto or Paychecks, for instance, you can link your Puzzle account to those payroll providers, and Puzzle's going to try and generate a bi-weekly invoice for whenever you have to run payroll. QuickBooks I have had the displeasure of using with Paychecks, and a lot of times you'll have to do that journal entry manually. There is room for mistakes. You're often basing it on a payroll output report from Paychecks and then manually plugging that information to QuickBooks, and that doesn't seem to be the case with Puzzle. And I'll show you that here. So basically, if you drill into the payroll tab over here, it's going to build that journal entry for you. It's going to show you what's salary, what's employer portion of payroll, what's taxes, and then, do I owe a payment to Gusto, what went out to Gusto to cover payroll taxes, and then, what's my fee for Gusto services, maybe $200 a pay period, and it's going to try and capture all that. Now, all companies are a little different. Puzzle's no exception, and you're going to want to make sure that you are double checking that. You can't totally rely on the AI, because the AI gets it wrong once, it's going to get it wrong a dozen times, and then you're undoing 3 or 4 months worth of transactions. So definitely going to commend Puzzle's team on being able to implement that, because unless you're running payroll out of QuickBooks, I have always found it to be a little clunky. And then if you are running payroll out of QuickBooks, QuickBooks gets expensive quickly, $7 per employee per month. I have some clients who pay over $500 a month for their QuickBooks payroll because they have 40, 50 employees plus the standard software costs. So Puzzle does not have itself priced in that dynamic fashion. It has a couple different price points, with the most expensive being $100, I believe. So definitely would recommend Puzzle for that. But you are going to have to pay your third-party payroll provider like Gusto or Paychecks. So keep that in mind. That is definitely a hidden cost when considering the accounting softwares. In terms of other UI and usability, your general ledger is going to be readily available on both. There's not really much to talk about. Same for the chart of accounts. I do like that Puzzle. Actually, I am really gloating over Puzzle. I use QuickBooks day to day. It's been able to get the job done, but I am excited for this option coming to the ball field. One thing that I really liked about Puzzle is when you go to add an account, this is so simple from an accounting perspective. If you go to add an account and you need it to be a cash account, you can set it as a contra asset account, which as a business owner, that's probably way over a lot of y'all's heads, but as an accountant, it's super useful if I need to showcase something on the balance sheet where I might not normally find it. QuickBooks, you can't set up a contra asset account unless I believe it's for depreciation or amortization. Those are the only two, and I have tried, I reached out to support, it's just not supported. So the fact that Puzzle has it, I like that. That's a very technical and nuanced thing, but it showcases the breadth and depth of the offerings of this software. Moving on from my nerding out over the chart of accounts for an accounting software. Reconciliations. QuickBooks, if you have a bank link to it, it does fine. Most of the time I can reconcile an account pretty much instantaneously. The same with Puzzle. Where I will say QuickBooks gets into trouble is whenever you have like two transactions comprising one sum within your book. So like, let's say if I have two $50 transactions to the same vendor on the same day, but I'm getting lazy within my QuickBooks and I just book it as a $100 transaction. A lot of times QuickBooks might struggle with that and reconciling and understanding that, hey, these two transactions surmise the sum of the one on my books. I don't know how well Puzzle gets over that. My assumption is that it's able to pick it up pretty well because it's a direct bank feed, but you would expect the same from QuickBooks, and I've just not seen that to be the case. But bank recons, a basic bookkeeper can do that. There's nothing special there. I've never really had a ton of issues with my QuickBooks, so I'm just going to say that's probably a pretty level playing field. Same with the manual journal entries. That is something that I'll probably give QuickBooks a little bit of credit for. You can basically take the leash off the dog on that one. QuickBooks will let you make a journal entry to anywhere, any account, debit, credit. You want to set it up as equity, expense, revenue, however you need to do it. QuickBooks will let you do it. Not as familiar with it on Puzzle. I do see that there are a couple of accrual journal entries within this test client. But QuickBooks has been known to basically say, hey, there are no training wheels. If you want to mess up your company's books, you're allowed to. I'm not saying that's a good thing. As someone who has a technical background in it, I do like that freedom. I do appreciate not having my hand held so I can do the work that I need to do. I'm not really sure how Puzzle will interact with that because I haven't really need to make any adjusting journal entries or manual journal entries. But my suspicion is that Puzzle probably has some of this on lock to where you're not going to be able to easily make some of those crazier journal entries, and for good reason. Instead of having to make a crazy journal entry at the end of the month, you should probably just refine your accounting software so that it can be more easily streamlined and done on a go-forward basis. Okay, so I'm going to go back to nerding out for a second over the fixed assets. Once again, this is something that, like, as an accountant, it's really refreshing to see. I feel like whoever made Puzzle had a very diverse accounting background because there's a fixed asset listing within Puzzle. And I don't think there's an option for fixed asset listing within QuickBooks. I've never seen the option, and I've worked among a multitude of clients. Typically, our fixed asset listings is in third-party software. Just out of curiosity, fixed asset. So I don't see a report in there for it. The only thing I can think to do is if you have a fixed asset that you want to depreciate monthly or yearly, you can go in and set up a recurring journal entry, which is somewhere within QuickBooks over here. Journal entry. Okay, well, I don't see it. It might be on these little dots over here. But you could set up a recurring journal entry, but the only place you're going to be able to see that fixed asset is on your balance sheet. Not really a great case if you got 40 trucks, skid steer, excavator, you trying to depreciate your building that you're in. You're going to want all of that to be in one place, and Puzzle makes that possible. You put your fixed asset in, how long, what's the useful life under IRS guidelines, makers, GAAP, whatever. What's the value that you paid for it? What's the asset type? Where do you want your balance sheet? Boom, set it and forget it. That is so simple, and yet I feel like that's something that QuickBooks really struggles with, in that most people have to use a third-party software to track their fixed assets. It shouldn't be that hard, and Puzzle kind of fixes that for you. All right, let's get into some of the more nuanced and boring things regarding the differences between the two softwares. So if you drill into the accounting tab here, actually, my fault, I meant to drill into the revenue here. You can see the invoices that you've sent your customers. In Puzzle, you can set those to bill monthly. It'll help base it off of if you have like a third-party platform like Square. If you've sent that invoice in Square, it'll pull it over into Puzzle. QuickBooks does the same thing. Not really anything special there. Same for the customers reports. Who's your customers? How many invoices have you sent them? What are the previous transactions? QuickBooks has all of that. I'm not going to drill into the QuickBooks here because it'll showcase everything that I have on my business, which is not up to date, so I don't really mind doing it. What products do you sell? QuickBooks does allow you to book those different products. Revenue recognition. This is another one of those things that Puzzle does really well, that it offers a tremendous depth of I guess choices for a more technical need, such as what a CPA would need. QuickBooks, you can do cash or accrual, as long as I'm not mistaken. And Puzzle is the same, but it's just really nice to have a specific call out that says, do you want to do accrual? Do you want to do cost of completion, complete a contract method? It's just a little bit deeper, and I do like that it's readily available right here. Most business owners are going to use cash, because that's what they're familiar with. But as an accountant, everything I do is on accrual, because that's what's GAAP, that's what's allowed, that's what's accepted. That's what other accountants are going to understand. It's a more holistic approach to how you view your business, not just what's in and out the bank account. Revenue accrual, you can make a journal entry to accrue revenue in QuickBooks, but if you do a ton of accruals, like let's say you are a software company and you have money that you know you're financially and contractually obligated to, this could be super useful. I don't think QuickBooks offers anything like that. AR aging, you're both going to have reports, or both softwares are going to have reports related to that. Customer payments, same, you're going to have reports. Expenses, this is literally almost identical to QuickBooks. You're going to have your bills, you're going to have your vendors. Your vendors are going to tell you what the previous transactions were. But this is something that's a little different. This is one of those ones where, once again, I'm just like, this is really nice on Puzzle's behalf. There's prepaid expenses. It's really difficult to track prepaid expenses in QuickBooks without a ton of journal entries. If, let's say, I prepaid my employees' healthcare expenses. In Puzzle, you just set it up and then you amortize it over 6 months, 12 months, whatever the policy premium period is. In QuickBooks, you have to put it on the balance sheet and then make a recurring journal entry that you have to remember to turn off. I just like that. Also, if you have several of these, they're all in one spot. If you have many prepaid items within QuickBooks, it gets unwieldy quickly. AP aging reports, that's available within QuickBooks. It's also available within Puzzle. Same for your vendor payments. We already talked about payroll a little bit. So those are going to be your main differences between Puzzle. So like on a grand overview type of takeaway for this video, Puzzle really seems to be very granular. It seems to be a company or a software company where your accountant can get in and really tune the books to what your business needs. And I really appreciate that. But also, I'm the CPA, I'm the accountant, I'm the guy who can take advantage of that. It could be overwhelming for business owners who don't know what the difference between a contra asset account and an asset account is, or a contra revenue account and a revenue account. So that is definitely a plus on Puzzle. The big thing though is Puzzle's AI. Not only is it kind of really deep and granular, but it does a good job with its AI, trying to take a lot of that load off of you. But anytime I talk about AI in the accounting space, I say the same thing. You have to watch it. You have to monitor it. You have to ensure that you're not letting it run loose, because if it makes that mistake once, it'll make it 100 times until someone catches it and corrects it. And then instead of undoing 1 or 2 journal entries, you're now undoing 9 months worth of journal entries and getting those corrected and making a lot of prior period adjustments, things that nobody wants to do. So I have no doubt that Puzzle's AI is very robust and very good at what it does, but that is just my closing thoughts on that. QuickBooks, however, it's been around. It's been around the block and knows what it's doing. I can set up a CPA firm in QuickBooks. I can set up an organic cafe. I can set up a construction company. I can set up a guitar shop, a bookstore. I can set up any business type within reason that you can think of, and QuickBooks will probably be able to field it. I might have to pay more money for some of those subscription offerings, maybe because they're paywalled behind the $10 a month or $35 a month or $100 a month QuickBooks plan, but QuickBooks is going to be able to do it. QuickBooks also, it has some AI functionality to where you can automate some things away, but once again, you're still gonna have to check everything. I also think the dashboard isn't as sleek. But one of the defining characteristics of QuickBooks to me is it's been around the block, and if you have an issue within QuickBooks, you will not be the first. I've been using QuickBooks for years. I found one issue where I'm the first person to ever run into that, and I reached out to their chat team, and they put an engineer on it, and they got it fixed. Anything else within QuickBooks, you're gonna have a forum out there. You're gonna have somebody who's ran into that issue, and you're gonna have somebody who's helped troubleshoot it, and you can get that journal entry in, you can get that expense fixed, and you can move on with your day. Puzzle doesn't have that benefit because it's new. It's the new kid on the block, and so that is something to consider. Overall, I think either would be a great software. I am really excited for Puzzle and what it's offering, but if you don't like change, you don't want to learn a new software, QuickBooks will be able to get done whatever you need to get done. So you can't go wrong with either of them, in my opinion.